Good evening and welcome to Scotland at 7. My name is McGlynn. Russia has attacked Ukraine's grain port of Izmail, an inland port across the Danube River from Romania. Ukraine's defence ministry said a grain silo was damaged. There were no reports of casualties. The port across the river from NATO member Romania has served as the main alternative route out of Ukraine for grain exports since Russia reimposed its de facto blockade of Ukraine's Black Sea ports in mid-July. Ukrainian Infrastructure Minister Alexander Kubrikov claimed Russian attacks early on Wednesday damaged almost 40,000 tons of grain, which was bound for China, Israel and countries in Africa. Ukraine claims its air defences shot down 23 Shahed drones. The majority were destroyed in the Kiev Oblast and Odessa Oblast. In Kiev, fragments of a downed drone fell on an administration building in Solomiansky district. Andriy Yermak, head of the office of the Ukrainian presidency, has again called for a tightening of sanctions against Russia in order to inhibit weapon production following the overnight strikes. Ukraine Inform reports that 5 settlements in the Sumy region have been shelled. It cites the local authority stating no civilian casualties or destruction of civilian infrastructure was recorded. Kherson was also reportedly under fire, with houses, offices and cars being damaged in the city and at least 2 people being injured. After the Russian President Vladimir Putin and Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan spoke on the phone today, Erdogan's office issued a statement in which said Putin would at some point visit Turkey. But not long after, Russian state media reported that Putin and Erdogan had only agreed to prepare for a possible meeting. The head of Latvia's state border guard has said the country has started training a special task force of border guards in response to the arrival of Wagner mercenary troops in Belarus. The Polish Deputy Foreign Minister, Paweł Jablonski, has said relations with Ukraine have not been the best lately, after an official was criticised by Kiev after suggesting the embattled nation had been ungrateful for the support it had received. Pope Francis has urged Europe to find courageous courses of peace to end the war in Ukraine as he opened a 5-day visit to Portugal for a major Catholic youth festival. Authorities in Kiev have removed the Soviet Union-era symbol from the Motherland Monument. It is to be replaced with the trident national symbol of Ukraine. Russia claims to have downed a drone in the Sevastopol district of Crimea, according to the local governor Mikhail Razhnechev. Poland said on Tuesday it was rushing troops to its eastern border after accusing Belarus, Russia's closest ally, of violating its airspace with military helicopters. Top story tonight. The Scottish and UK governments have reached agreement on the fiscal framework, providing greater long-term funding clarity for Scotland and some more flexibility on how the Scottish Government manages the public finances. After a joint review, the 2 governments have agreed to permanently adopt the existing indexed per capita method used to calculate the funding received from the UK Government. This enshrines the current way the fiscal framework operates, taking into account the devolution of some tax and social security powers and protecting the Scottish budget from the risk of Scotland's population growing at a slower rate from the rest of the UK. In addition, the amount the Scottish Government can borrow to mitigate against errors in forecasting will be increased from 300 million to 600 million, with no limits on the amount that can be withdrawn from the Scotland Reserve, providing some greater flexibility to handle funding volatility. Borrowing and reserve limits will grow in line with inflation and will therefore be maintained in real terms. Deputy First Minister Shona Robinson said, "This is a finely balanced agreement that gives us some extra flexibility to deal with unexpected shocks against a background of continuing widespread concern about the sustainability of UK public finances. And while it is a narrower review than we would have liked, I am grateful to the Chief Secretary of the Treasury for reaching this deal. As I set out in the medium-term financial strategy, we are committed to tackling poverty, building a fair, green and growing economy, and improving our public services to make them fit for the needs of future generations. We still face a profoundly challenging situation and will need to make tough choices in the context of a poorly performing UK economy and the constraints of devolution to ensure finances remain sustainable. New figures show that the UK has the worst unemployment safety net in Northwest Europe. The analysis, using official OECD data, shows the UK had the worst unemployment benefits as a proportion of previous in-work income of any neighbouring European country last year. After 2 months of unemployment, the UK only offers unemployment benefits worth a mere 17% of previous in-work income compared to 90% in Belgium. The UK benefits replacement rate is substantially lower than every neighbouring country, including Luxembourg, Norway, Denmark, Iceland, Switzerland, Sweden, the Netherlands, France, Germany, Finland, Austria and Ireland. Furthermore, the analysis shows the UK has had the worst benefit replacement rate of any country in Northwest Europe on every measure for every year of the 21st century, when the OECD first started publishing the comparative figures. Worse still, the UK benefit replacement rate has gotten worse over the past 2 decades. In 2001, UK unemployment benefits were worth 20% of previous in-work earnings, but in 2004 it fell to 19%, in 2007 it fell further to 18%, and in 2022 it has hit its lowest ever level at just 17%. The analysis comes amid a growing backlash over Tory and Labour Party cuts to the UK's social security safety net. In recent weeks, Keir Starmer has been criticised by anti-poverty charities for admitting the Labour Party would keep the 2-child cap, which figures show has pushed 20,000 Scottish children into poverty in 2023. The Labour Party leader has also refused to commit to restoring other UK government benefit cuts, including the benefits cap, the bedroom tax and the local housing allowance freeze, and the £20 cut to universal credit, which together have cut the incomes of millions of households. Commenting, the SNP's social justice spokesperson, David Linden MP, said, "Scotland is one of the wealthiest countries in the world, but too many people are struggling to get by as a direct result of damaging Westminster cuts, showing why independence is key to delivering real change and a fairer society. The Tories have torn apart the social security safety net, and the pro-Brexit Labour Party is making it worse by admitting it would keep the most damaging Tory cuts, like the 2-child cap and the bedroom tax. The SNP is the only party offering real change with independence, and real help with the cost of living. In contrast, Starmer and Sunak are lurching to the right and taking millions of pounds in vital support away from families during a cost of living crisis. In government, the SNP has shown what's possible by introducing progressive policies like the Scottish Child Payment and spending hundreds of millions mitigating the worst Tory cuts. But independence is the only way to fully protect families from the damage of Westminster control. More people in the UK are missing payments for essential bills, including for energy, water or council tax, according to a consumer group, as the cost of living crisis continues to hurt household finances. Which's Consumer Insight Tracker found that 2.4 million UK households missed or defaulted on essential payments, including for housing, loans or credit cards, in the month to 13th of July, returning to the high levels seen last winter. The number of people missing payments last month was significantly higher than the level seen in May, suggesting that consumers remain under pressure even in the warmer months of the year when energy costs are lower. The figures come as the Bank of England is expected to further raise interest rates on Thursday in an attempt to tackle stubbornly high inflation, increasing the squeeze on borrowers, including consumers and businesses. Which found that of the missed payments, 1.5 million households missed or defaulted on settling a household bill, such as for energy, water or council tax, in the month to mid-July. 2/3 of those who missed payments of a household bill reported that this was not the first time. Water and energy were the most commonly missed bills, followed by phone bills and council tax payments. It is estimated that more than 770,000 households missed or defaulted on a housing payment, affecting just under 6% of renters and more than 3% of mortgage holders. Amid the squeeze on consumer finances, 59% of households said they had made changes to enable them to cover essential spending on bills, housing costs, groceries, school supplies and medicines in the past month, including by cutting back on essentials, dipping into their savings, or selling some of their possessions or borrowing. Last week, the poverty charity, the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, warned that millions of low-income families were taking out loans or using credit cards to cover basic household bills and expenses as their finances were squeezed by the cost of living crisis. The owner of the Drax power plant in North Yorkshire has been forced to deny that it used a loophole in the UK government subsidy scheme to avoid paying almost £650 million to households since the start of the energy crisis. An investigation by Bloomberg found that the company idled one of the generating units at its giant power plant for much of 2022, when the energy market crisis plunged millions of homes into fuel poverty. The report claims that if Drax had kept running the unit, which earns a fixed subsidy levied on energy bills, it would have been required to return an estimated £639 million to bill payers as of last month. Instead, the Bloomberg alleges that Drax was able to use a surge in the global price for wood pellets to make more money from selling them on than it could by using them to generate electricity. Although Drax is not alleged to have broken any market rules, a previous Energy UK minister had accused the company of acting against the national interest. The leader of the Liberal Democrats, Ed Davey, who was Energy Secretary when the government negotiated the subsidy deal, said, "It looks like they are acting in bad faith. Under the terms of the subsidy contract, which has handed Drax about £1.4 billion to date, energy projects receive a fixed price for each megawatt of electricity generated. Usually, companies receive a payment levied on energy bills which tops up the earnings from the wholesale market to the agreed strike price. But in the past year, market prices have been significantly higher than the subsidy level, requiring companies to pay the difference back to consumers. Drax has denied that it intentionally shut its biomass unit to avoid making these payments in favour of profiting from the resale price of its wood pellets, branding Bloomberg's investigation false, inaccurate and misleading. The threat to the UK's democracy spaces is growing as charities and civil society groups come under political attack by UK government ministers, a report has warned. Anti-protest laws and culture wars perpetuated by the UK government are among the issues highlighted by two think tanks, which said that the urgent and alarming problem was largely going unnoticed. Civil Exchange and the Sheila McKenney Foundation argued that restrictions imposed on the charity sector had a chilling effect on public campaigning. Wider parts of civil society, meant to provide checks and balances in UK politics, have also been portrayed as the problem, blocking the government's plans and the will of the people, it was claimed. The findings came in a report titled Defending Our Democratic Spaces. In an assessment about the state of UK democracy, the report said there had been attempts to portray judges, lawyers, charities and campaigners and parts of the media as a block to democracy rather than key components of it. The report had added, "We must recognise the crisis before it is too late." It called on people to work together to arrest further decline and reimagine our democratic space, one where people's voices count and our democratic institutions are truly accountable. The UK was recently downgraded in an annual global index of civic freedoms as a result of the government's increasingly authoritarian drive to impose restrictive and punitive laws on public protests. A host of other factors were raised in the think tank's report, published today, including new ID restrictions on the right to vote and gagging clauses being inserted into UK government contracts tendered to not-for-profit groups. Other issues, such as reduced access to judicial review to challenge the lawfulness of government decisions, recent clampdowns on the right to strike, and claims of anti-terrorism laws being abused were also highlighted. Many of those interviewed as part of the research reported concern about the impact of culture wars on political and public debate. The report said such a move by some ministers had created an intemperate environment in which it is becoming ever harder for both individuals and non-profits to debate differences of view or share a common culture. Hundreds of thousands more women will face unsafe abortions and thousands will die in pregnancy and childbirth as a result of UK aid cuts in 2023 to 24. Foreign Office ministers were warned in an internal assessment. The Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office published its programme allocations for the next 2 years last month, showing that official development assistance spend is due to rise marginally in 2023 to 2024, and then to increase by 12% in 2024 to 2025 to £8.3 billion. While the projections indicate an increase, ODA spend is still below pre-2020 levels, which is when the government decided to reduce it temporarily from 0.7% of gross national income to 0.5%. An equality impact assessment conducted by the FCDO was provided to UK government ministers earlier this year to inform their decisions on where significant cuts to the budget for 2023 to 2024 would fall. The assessment, provided to and published by the International Development Committee, gave several examples showing the potential effects on groups with protected characteristics, due to reductions in spend on programs that specifically target vulnerable and marginalised groups. In particular, it highlighted the consequences for women's health and well-being, leading to unsafe abortions and maternal deaths. In relation to women and girls in Afghanistan, it said, due to the scale of the ODA reductions, in Afghanistan the FCDO will not be able to support critical services for women and girls. Since returning to power, the Taliban has imposed restrictions on women and girls, preventing them from enjoying their human rights and systematically erasing them from public spaces. Therefore, reducing funding will potentially leave some of the most vulnerable women and girls in the world without critical services. On sexual and reproductive health rights, it said about Pan-Africa, spend reductions on the Women's Integrated Sexual Health Programme will mean that the results for women and girls would be reduced by approximately 60%. The number of couple years of protection provided will drop from nearly 3 million to around 1.1 million. The number of unsafe abortions averted from nearly 300,000 to approximately 115,000. The number of maternal deaths averted will drop from 2,531 to just over 1,000. On Yemen, the report added, 500,000 women and children in Yemen will not receive healthcare and fewer preventable deaths will be avoided. It may cause lasting damage to health systems in Yemen if other donors are unable to fund. Moreover, cuts to disability, religion and LGBTQ+ inclusion efforts in various countries will affect vulnerable groups, limiting access to improved learning environments, healthcare and support services. Donald Trump is due to appear in court on Thursday after federal prosecutors indicted the ex-president for attempting to overturn the 2020 election. As Democrats and progressives welcomed the charges, but many Republicans rallied behind him. Prosecutors will outline the 4 conspiracy and obstruction counts Trump faces, and a judge will set bail conditions in the latest criminal case before the former president, weeks after he was charged with retaining national defense information. Donald Trump has been indicted on 4 charges relating to his attempts to overturn the 2020 US election: conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, obstruction of and attempt to obstruct an official proceeding, and conspiracy against rights. The judge will also set out a schedule for pre-trial motions and discovery. Both sides are likely later to file motions seeking to shape what evidence and legal arguments will be permitted at the eventual trial, which could be many months away. Many Republicans, elected officials and voters have unashamedly backed Trump, seeking to portray the charges against him as selective and politically motivated, prosecution and a Democratic plot to derail his 2024 re-election bid. The pattern largely held after Wednesday's indictment, which was brought by the special counsel Jack Smith and filed in federal district court in Washington, with most Republicans pivoting to criticize Trump's successor, Joe Biden. The latest charges mean the former president has been impeached twice, arrested twice and indicted 3 times over attempted election subversion, hush money payments to a porn actor, and the alleged mishandling of classified documents. Mike Pence, Trump's former vice president, who refused to bow to pressure not to certify the election results, said the latest indictment was an important reminder anyone who puts himself over the Constitution should never be President of the United States, adding that Trump's candidacy meant more distractions. The House Democratic leader, Hakeem Jeffries, and the Democratic Senate leader, Chuck Schumer, said Trump's third indictment illustrates in shocking detail a months-long criminal plot led by the former president to defy democracy and overturn the will of the American people. Patients in Scotland's largest health board are benefiting from a new service which is backed by the Scottish Government's Long COVID Support Fund. The service is supported by £595,000 of Scottish Government funding over 2023 to 2024 and is one of a number of projects across the country which are backed by the £10 million fund. The NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde Long COVID service sees a team of advanced practitioner occupational therapists, physiotherapists and healthcare support workers offer advice on managing and improving the symptoms of the condition. It has had more than 340 referrals since it opened 3 months ago, with people offered appointments in a way that best suits them, by video or telephone or in person at a clinic. Or at home, an expansion is planned to include a paediatric occupational therapist for children and young people. During a visit to meet staff at the Glasgow Health Service, Health Secretary Michael Matheson said, "I recognise the significant impact that the symptoms of long COVID can have on those most severely affected. I was very pleased to meet the range of professionals involved in NHS GGC's long COVID service and hear how the funding we have made available is enabling them to provide advice and support to people living with the condition to improve their quality of life. Thanks to the hard work of staff, this service and others like it across Scotland are providing invaluable support and treatment through rehabilitation therapies and other strategies." Thousands of elite cyclists, including para-athletes, have arrived in Scotland to compete in the world's biggest cycling event, as the competition is set to get underway in Glasgow. Speaking ahead of the opening ceremony in George Square today, First Minister Humza Yousaf has encouraged people to join in the fun by visiting fan zones, attending some of the free events, or soaking up the atmosphere around the venues, which will likely be gathering points for the thousands of local and international visitors that are expected. Over the next 11 days, venues across the country will host 13 UCI Cycling World Championships, coming together for the first time to create the biggest cycling event in history. Plans have been put in place by key partners, including Transport Scotland, ScotRail and local authorities, to minimise disruption. However, given the scale of the event, people, businesses and organisations are encouraged to plan ahead and consider travel plans to reduce the risk of delays. First Minister said Scotland is proud to host the first ever UCI Cycling World Championships. Cyclists from around the world will be participating in one of the biggest and most exciting sporting events of the year. I'm delighted to welcome all the competitors and the many international visitors. The championships will highlight the beauty of Scotland's landscapes and the vibrancy of our cities. Several of the events don't require tickets, and there will be free activities to enjoy. Checking travel arrangements in advance will help people make the most of what's on offer. As events get underway, I would like to thank all the individuals and partner organisations who have helped prepare for them. I encourage as many people as possible to get involved and hope they will be inspired to cycle as a result. We are already delivering a range of community events and activities and have improved infrastructure across the country through the Cycling Facilities Fund and the Community Cycling Fund. This is also a great opportunity to promote the broader benefits of active travel for us all, which helps to reduce carbon emissions. The very best of cultural talent from Scotland will be under the spotlight this month, as Edinburgh welcomes visitors from home and abroad to its world-class summer arts festivals. 6 of the festivals have received support from the Scottish Government's Expo Fund to commission new work, some of which will tour internationally following Festival for Performances. Under the Made in Scotland banner, there are 18 funded shows this year, featuring an exciting mix of theatre, music and dance commissions and performances. In addition, the Platforms for Creative Excellence programme, jointly funded by the Scottish Government and the City of Edinburgh Council, focuses on programme innovation, creative development and community. Culture Secretary Angus Robertson said, "Scotland has a wealth of phenomenally talented artists, and the Edinburgh Festivals provide a fantastic platform for them to reach a much wider audience. Expo and Place funding have not only helped to raise the profile of Scottish artists, but contributed to a more vibrant and diverse art scene, both at home and internationally. There is something for everyone across the summer festivals, and I hope that people from home and abroad, whether they're taking part in events or watching performances, will enjoy this fantastic celebration of culture." Well, that's it for this evening. But before I go, I just want to remind you that here at Broadcasting Scotland, we depend on the generosity of our supporters. So to everyone who has donated, and to everyone who has signed up to make a regular monthly payment, thank you very much. Our programmes will always be free to view. However, if you can afford £5 a month, please consider becoming a Broadcasting Scotland supporter. Right now, we have a pressing need to raise £30,000 to pay our bills and ensure that we are able to continue making programmes. We have raised over £9,000 so far, but we really need to raise the remaining £21,000 as soon as possible. Good night, and thank you for watching.
Hello and welcome to Broadcasting Scotland. My name is Lewis McGlynn.
Hello and welcome to Broadcasting Scotland. My name is Saoirse Healy.
Hello and welcome to Broadcasting Scotland. My name is Donald C. Stewart. Broadcasting Scotland is Scotland's independent broadcaster, providing factual news, reporting on the issues important to the people of Scotland.
We are committed to public service broadcasting, and with your support, we will produce even more programmes.
Provide opportunities for young people interested in media production and broadcasting, and challenge preconceptions of what Scottish media looks like, amplifying Scotland's voice and reflecting its communities.
We can already deliver high-quality live news, and we will create the highest quality programmes for you to enjoy. But we can only do that with your support.
So please subscribe to and share our channel or donate to Broadcasting Scotland via the link in the description. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.